In 2017, the beta of Call of Duty World War II featured network performance icons which allowed players to understand why they had a bad online experience and helped them troubleshoot the issue. But these icons were removed for the final version without any explanation. Then in 2018, the Black Ops 4 game servers rendered a tick rate of 60 Hz during the beta. But at release the tick rate was lowered to just 20 Hz, which had a very noticeable impact on the hit registration and the overall quality of the online experience. So besides providing you with results that you can use when you decide if you should buy the game at launch, these are just two more examples which show why testing beta versions is important. Now let's talk about these network performance icons, which are like the warning lights on your car's dashboard. While these icons were removed from Call of Duty World War II after the beta, the release version of Modern Warfare had quite a few of them. At least inside the files of the game client, as some of them do not seem to be in use. So while I'm very happy that the developers added these icons, they sadly did not explain what they mean or what causes them to show up, which led to people falsely thinking that they suffer from packet loss when they got the packet burst icon, which is no surprise as these icons look very similar. Now, the beta of Call of Duty Cold War also features such icons, which warn you about issues with your connection that have a negative impact on your online experience. And this time there's even an explanation right inside the game, even though I find some of them a bit confusing. So let's take a look at the first one. High latency. This icon shows up in orange when the round trip time of the game data between the server and the client exceeds 100 milliseconds. And it turns red when the value goes past 150 milliseconds. You will see this icon when you play on a server that is very far away, or when your connection suffers from congestion, also known as buffer bloat. In the description you can find links to videos where I explain what buffer bloat is, how it affects your online experience, and what you can do to fix it. Latency variation means that the time it takes data to travel back and forth between your client and the server is not stable. That can cause much more severe issues than playing at a stable high latency or a high ping. The most common cause of this is congestion or buffer bloat. That said, this icon never showed up in my tests, even when I made my connection so bad that my latency to the server was constantly changing between 28 and 250 milliseconds. So it seems like it didn't work in the beta. The disconnect icon tells you that you've lost the connection to the server. The packet burst icon, which many confuse with packet loss, appears to be caused by network congestion or a CPU bottleneck, which makes sense as I've seen that icon when I Alt-tab out and then back into the game, which briefly stalls the game client. However, I could not get the icon to show up by intentionally causing network congestion. Based on what I know from other games, the extrapolation icon warns you that the simulation done by your client differs from the simulation done by the server. This is usually caused by network congestion, high latency variation, as well as a highly unstable frame rate where a stall or freeze is especially bad. And lastly, there's the shaders compilation icon, which will only show up when shaders haven't finished compiling. Sadly, the developers did not include an icon for server performance, and there is also no packet loss icon, which I do not understand because when a packet gets lost between the server and the client, then this is a big issue. Like, you surely want to know when a packet that contained a shot you fired did not reach the server. So, while you can enable an overlay which shows you how much packet loss your connection to the server has, I would really like to see the developers add a packet loss icon and change the packet burst icon so that it cannot be confused with packet loss. When it comes to the network model, then for small game modes, we can most likely expect that Cold War will sadly also use a mix of listen servers where a player hosts the match and dedicated servers where the match runs on a server in the data center. Custom matches will probably only use the listen server network model and so have a player host the match. The larger combined ARMS and Fireteam game modes will quite certainly only use dedicated game servers, as these are just too much for a game client to host. If Cold War does indeed use both listen servers and dedicated servers, which I'm not happy about as listen servers have a laundry list of downsides, then I hope that the developers will at the very least tell players when they are not playing on a dedicated server, and give them an option to choose longer matchmaking times if that ensures that they end up on a dedicated game server and not on a listen server where a player hosts the match. One of the first things I do when I test a multiplayer game is fire up Wireshark and then look at the network traffic, as that allows me to make an educated guess about the tick rate of the game server. For some reason, all Call of Duty studios now seem to think that Wireshark is a bad tool that must be blocked, as the game client still actively looks for that application and closes itself when it is detected. This makes no sense, as it takes just 2 seconds to get around that block, so I do not know why they even bothered to do that. Anyway, when we take a look at the rate at which my game client receives packets from the server in the Fireteam Dirty Bomb game mode, which has up to 40 players on the server, then we see a send rate of 20 packets per second, which suggests that the game server runs at just 20 Hz. The spikes that you see here are caused by the server sending multiple packets at once. That usually means that an update was too big to fit into a single data packet, and so it had to be split up into multiple packets, like when you want to ship so many things that you must use more than one box. In this case, however, the packet size didn't seem to be the issue. I just got multiple small packets from the server sometimes. The send rate of my client looks even worse. There are spikes where my client just dumped over 20 very small packets on the server for some reason. As I also recorded my gameplay during that time, I can tell you that the packet burst icon didn't show up once when I made that packet capture, and I did not alt tab out of the game either, so I do not know what caused this behavior. When we then take a look at the packet capture from the smaller combined ARMS game mode, where you only have up to 24 players on the server, then we see the same send rates but much fewer spikes. In the smallest game modes, the spikes almost disappear entirely, and the send rate of the server is at 59 packets per second, which suggests that in these small game modes, with a maximum of 12 players, the game server runs at a tick rate of 59 Hz. That said, it is odd that the game client only sends about 50 packets per second to the server. Usually you see the game client use at least the same send rate as the server, or a higher rate to further reduce the network delay. So that data is already quite frustrating, as both the Fireteam game mode with 40 players as well as the combined ARMS game mode with 24 players run at just 20 Hz. When you consider that since 2015 Battlefield games run at 60 Hz with 64 players and feature destruction, bullet physics simulation, as well as since Battlefield 1 a fully server-side hit registration to mitigate how far behind cover you get hit when you get shot by a player who has a very high ping, then this said 20 Hz tick rate in game modes with just 24 and 40 players respectively is simply disappointing, as Activision surely has the resources to get the game to run at 60 Hz in these modes as well. But why is the tick rate such a big deal? When the server does 20 simulations per second, then it can only update your client 20 times per second. When the server does 60 simulations per second, then it can also update your client 60 times per second. A higher tick rate and so more frequent updates result in less lag. You can think of the server running at a higher frame rate then. A higher simulation rate also makes the networking more robust, as losing a few packets is much less of an issue at 60 Hz than at 20 Hz. So while the networking is about much more than just the tick rate, knowing that only the small game modes seem to run at more than 20 Hz tells us a lot about what to expect from the delay that two players experience when they play on the same server at a latency of 28 milliseconds each, which by the way you only get from the latency overlay, as the scoreboard does not show the player's ping. So in the small game modes, which appear to run at a tick rate of 59 Hz, the delay between my two test players was not good, to say the least. How bad the beta was gets clear when you compare these results to Modern Warfare and other games with similar sized game modes. The results from the larger game modes, which run at just 20 Hz, are even worse than what I measured in Modern Warfare's Ground War, which runs at 21 Hz. Compare that to the results from Fortnite and Battlefield 5, which put much more players on their servers. So if you felt that the large game modes were worse than the small ones, then this might explain why. That said, the results from Modern Warfare show that there is at least hope that the delays will be shorter at release, which I will put to the test in the second or third week after the release, as at launch the developers tend to deploy frequent updates to fix issues with the game client and the servers. So I'm curious to find out if the developers can fix the issues I noticed in the beta, if they manage to reduce the network delays and increase the tick rate in the large game modes, if they will add icons for server performance and packet loss, as well as change the design of the packet burst icon, and what network model or models matchmaking uses for the small game modes, as well as what is used for custom games. I really hope that listen servers will not be used in this game, as having a player host a match comes with a laundry list of downsides, as I explained in this video. And that's all for today. I want to thank my fine patrons for their awesome support, which allows me to create videos like this one. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like, subscribe for more, ring the bell to get notified when I upload my next video, and I hope to see you next time. Until then, have a nice day and take care. My name is Chris, and this was Battle Nonsense.